And I agree with you 100%. Just the way these politicians, it drive. Now I'm getting fired up. It's 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 absolutely crazy. You talked about social media and how it's broken this generation. I would really love to talk to you about that because I agree with you 100%. Why do you say that social media has been such an issue?
It's people are becoming mentally obese. It's like eating too much sugar. Only difference is it's the visual of the dopamine. It's the dopamine that they're getting from the visual aspect rather than from eating junk food. But I mean, they're doing both. People are doing both these days. But I mean, I'm on my phone too. I spend too much time on my phone, and I'm quite disciplined with stuff. I've got quite a lot of self-discipline, and it's one of the things that I still think, shit, there I go again. I just lost 20 minutes of my day because I've been looking at shit on social media. So I've got to like check myself in. With these kids, it's like it's normal because we grew up without mobile phones. I mean, I'm not sure how old you are, but I mean, I'll be 47 this year, and I didn't have my first mobile phone until I was in my 20s. First smartphone when I was in my 30s. So it wasn't normal, and but these kids have grown up with this. It's been normal to them from a very young age, and so when it's normal, that is your condition because everyone's got their own condition, and wherever we are at any point of our lives right now, we've got a point of right now in time, and we have a set conditioning depending on what we experience for our whole lives. So if their experience has been through a phone or an iPad, that's the way their brain's conditioned. And so the dopamine, the chemicals in your brain and the neurotransmitters and everything that's fired together and then wired together eventually, the dopamine that they get from picking their phone up and checking Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, whatever shit they look at, um, they'll subconsciously constantly look for that same dopamine hit. So that it's like anything, it's a battle between the conscious and the unconscious mind. So unconscious, they're doing all this stuff completely unconsciously. I mean, even I find myself sometimes going, "Oh, there's Instagram," and then I'll open Facebook, and then I'll go back to Instagram and remember that I've just been into Instagram because it's the same shit I'm looking at, and go, "I was in there like literally 15 seconds ago. Why am I checking it again?" But I catch myself. They don't. They're just going on it and scroll. It's just like reels, 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 and it's like a fucking it's like a surgical attachment that they're constantly seeking the dopamine,
So
and that's it.
you said you have one son. How many kids you got?
I've got two kids, one son, one daughter. My daughter's 19, my son's 8.
Okay. So your son's 8. Are you going to let him have a smartphone at any point? Like, when would you be okay with him getting on a smartphone and getting on
uh
the internet?
not for a while. I mean, I personally wouldn't want him to have one, but let's face it, they fall behind if they
Right.
don't have this stuff. They will fall behind potentially. But is that just a bad belief? Because why do they need it? Why do they need a smartphone? When you think about when you think about the reasons behind why some people would say that, I've just said it, but do I really believe that? Because what would be the reason that a child would need a smartphone? And the number one reason is because people think it all relates back to money. We're conditioned to we're conditioned to think about money all the time. So, oh, if you don't give them a smartphone, they won't be able to learn stuff. So therefore, when they're older, they won't be able to get a job or they won't be able to start a business. If they can get really good with TikTok, they can make millions of pounds or dollars from their phone. Kids are doing it. But are they happy? Are they genuinely happy? I think we've become so fucking hardwired to this belief that everything has to be through social media. Everything has to involve technology. But we're forgetting the basic stuff in life that matters more than any of that shit, which is nature, our health, introspection, knowing ourselves. Because what's happening now is, and this is across the board, kids and adults, is it one of the things that I tend to work on with my clients, and I've even gone through this myself, and I'll probably always go through it. But we should be in a constant quest to know ourselves as well as possible. And most people in the human race do not know themselves. They spend a lifetime trying to figure themselves out, trying to figure out why they procrastinate, why they do shit that they know is sabotaging their results. And they're in this constant cycle, this loop, antidepressants or alcohol or whatever other shit they can throw down their necks. And it's a belief system, it's the belief systems that are screwed. because I've just demonstrated that a minute ago. My son, when would he have a smartphone? Well, maybe when he's a teenager, when he's 13, which is 5 years from now. Will he want one before that? Probably, but I don't want to give him a smartphone. He's got an iPad, but he's thankfully he's not one of those kids that's obsessed with going on it all the time. He'll actually want to kick a football or play snooker or something like that. So he likes to do practical stuff, thankfully. But I suppose there's only so much you can hold them back from having something like technology. And if you do hold them back, they're going to find a way to get it anyway. It's unfortunately the way the world is right now, and it's quite frightening.
And I think number one, I agree with you 100% across the board. I think social media
Mm.
technology is had consequences that maybe we could see coming, but we just didn't pay attention to. But they're here now. I mean, there's no getting out of it. I mean,
Nah,
this is the way it is. And I think one of the things, and I'll be curious to get your opinion on this, I think it is so damaging for maybe kids who are that 13 to 16-year-old age, especially young women. They get on Instagram and they see all this poison, essentially, of how they should behave, how they should
mm,
look, what they should post to get attention from other people. That is injecting poison into a brain that is not developed enough to know how to reject it. And it's like I see people I grew up with posting online. I know that stuff's not real. I grew up with them. It's all an
yeah,
act, but they do it because they're so desperate. Like you said, the dopamine hits. So, Lindsay, what do we do? Like, how do we just take people's phones from them? Like, do we just cut the internet
nah,
access? What do we do?
you can't. But it's like anything else. I love chocolate. Chocolate can make you really fucking fat if you eat too much of it, but you can still enjoy it. I don't personally drink alcohol anymore, but I did up until last year. And when I drank alcohol till that point, it was one of those, I was always one of those guys who maybe on a Sunday I might have one or two beers. I didn't get drunk. 10 years ago, I did get drunk. So it's kind of been a progression for me in that sense. But that was a choice. And that's the thing. We all have a choice. And it's about influence. It's about it's for everyone's got a responsibility as a parent, as a friend, as a husband, wife. We all have our own responsibility. We all make our own decisions. And obviously, our surroundings, our environments dictates how we may become. But at the same time, you still have the choice to not become like the next person if it's not going to be a good influence for you. So it really does come down to personal choice. You can't force someone to stop something. You can't, you know, abstain someone from technology or social media because if the choice or the desire isn't within them, then it's not going to be there until they face enough pain to do something about it. And this is the other thing. Some people need to go into a very deep, dark place before they will realize that, they need to change. This is something I deal with a lot as well with clients. And I always think, in fact, I had a good conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and this kind of relates, so I'll try and link it up. A very good friend of mine, we met the other day for lunch. We see each other probably once a month. We actually were in the same squadron, same troop. We left at the same time. We got a job together, so we're really good friends. And I'm off to so I went to Ecuador last year, did a plant medicine retreat. Very very awake to what's going on, and I'm going through my own journey of essentially like a spiritual path of awakening myself, um, which has changed my life in the best way possible because it's made me get to know myself a lot better. And I'm a baby on this journey. I'm just started on the path, and then I've got a lot to learn, and it's given me a lot of sort of zest for life moving forward. But I'm going back to Ecuador in June to do a vision quest, which is 4 days, 4 nights, complete abstinence, no water, no food, no shelter, on the mountain, on my own for 4 days, 4 nights, just looking inwards, right? So my friend who I was having lunch with the other day, he said, in July, I'm going to do a cycle, like a transcontinental cycle. I think it's a couple of thousand miles. It's like really long. And to me, that's like it's hardcore. And this guy's very successful in his life. So he's financially, free. He's done well for himself. And he said, you know what? He says, you're doing your vision quest. He says, this is my vision quest. And I says, why are you doing it? And he says, do you know why I'm doing it? He says, I was fucking sick of being so comfortable. He says, I was comfortable to the point where I was, getting down because I didn't have any uncertainty. So much certainty with finances and things, but you get bored. You sometimes need that. You need pain, and I'm not in a sadist way, not in a David Goggins type way, but not just constantly chasing pain. But you need an element of uncertainty. It's one of the it's one of the basic human needs. You need variety and uncertainty. And if you get too much certainty, you get really bored. If you get too much uncertainty, you're just a bag of nerves. But you do need to sometimes push yourself into a place where you feel alive again. Because they say that when you're at fucking all-time low, or you know, you're gonna die, that's when you feel most alive, or that's where you want to be alive. We've all heard stories of that. I remember hearing one story. I watched a thing on TV ages ago about a guy who decided to take his own life, and he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And as he jumped off, he had, in his mind, he changed his mind, but it was too late. But he miraculously survived, and it changed his life. He came through addiction, depression. I mean, obviously he was at an all-time low, but he realized when he actually jumped that he fucking made a mistake, and he actually wanted to live more than ever. And that was his turning point. Just luckily he survived. And I've heard so many stories about people in similar positions where they have to reach rock bottom. The link to this story and the point I'm trying to make is at some point, I think, and this has to be not just on an individual level, I think it has to be on mass, is that when you look at the big picture of this, as on a global scale, most of the world is on a very fucking low vibration. The news, the media, politicians, there's a lot of corruption. It's a very low vibrational pool that a lot of people are on, whether it be eating too much shit, taking drugs, drinking too much alcohol, watching the news, not having money, wars, corruption. It's mass low vibrational fucking frequency. And I think, and if you look into this, that we're coming into another age. It might not be for a long, long time, but eventually it will have to come into another age where that has to pick up and it has to change. And I think that, you know, um, we all have a responsibility to not only be the best people we can ourselves, but influence as many people as we can in the best way possible. Just be good human beings and spread good messages to spread like love and light essentially, rather than shit and doom. Because if you can influence one person, should I say, and they can influence one person, and that sort of starts to have that sort of that branch out effect. That what's the word I'm looking for? It has like
Ripple
a
effect.
ripple effect. Yeah, that's exactly the word I was looking for. It has a ripple effect, and I think eventually it will win. But at the moment, there's such a low vibrational pool on the planet that as a mass consciousness, we have to eventually change. So when I'm thinking about my own purpose, what drives me is that if I can be the best person that I possibly can be by just trying to be a really good human being, a good father, a good potential partner, a good man, a good human, and I can try and influence others and help people try to live a better life for themselves and their families, and then other people are doing what I'm doing, and then collectively we all make a little bit of a difference, whatever we're doing in life. That's what has to make the effect. We have to have faith in the fact that that's going to eventually be the overriding factor. Then we might be in a better place. But I think that in the grand scheme of things have to get pretty shit before they get better. So when you think about the individual who has to go through their own dark shit to then come out of it and see the light and go, I want to change, it has to happen en masse as well eventually. Might not be in our lifetimes, but it will happen at some stage.
I love everything about that story. I mean, with your friend, what you're going through, 4 days without food and water. That is, I'd never even heard something about like that before. You'll have to
Yeah.
let us know how it goes. Could you tell the audience if they've watched this, they've stuck around, they're very interested in learning more about you. Where can they find you, whether it be on Instagram or a website? Like, where can they find more about Lindsay Bruce?
I mean, I don't have a website yet. It's one of those things I've been kind of doing my own procrastination on, but I've never really needed one to this point. So I am getting a bit, my website will be themodernwarriorproject.com. But my Instagram handle is at the Lindsay Bruce, so just like the followed by my name. And Facebook as well, just my name. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, that type of thing. But Instagram's probably the most sort of popular channel for me on socials. Yeah. So, and I've got a free Facebook group that people can join as well, the Modern Warrior Project. So people can catch me there.
Well, Lindsay, this has exceeded all expectations. We went from talking about you getting into the
I know, yeah.
SAS to talking about politics and much more. So I'd like to thank you very
Yeah,
much. And maybe in a year or so we come back and we talk about how your Vision Quest went
I
and where you're
I would
doing
love
then.
that. Yeah, I would absolutely love that. I'm sure I'll have a lot more to talk about. Yeah.
Absolutely.